Good morning, everybody. I'm Micheline from Americana Long Arm Quilting. We do custom quilting and long arming, and you can find a link to our website in the description below. Today I've got a fun and patriotic medallion quilt. This is a quarter of it, and it is so easy to do. You are going to be amazed. You'll be able to find a pattern for this as a PDF on our website, so go there and check it out. Don't have to worry about writing anything down. All this is, and what makes it so simple, there's only one block. That's it. It's a half square triangle. So you've got half square triangles that have blue and a background, half square triangles that have red and a background, and half square triangles that have red and blue. That's it. That's what makes up the entire quilt. This is going to be a fun one. Let's get started. Okay, so what I have done is I'm using 10-inch squares. Now I had yardage, I cut this down. You don't have to. But I'm going to show you how to make 8 half square triangles at a time. So first things first, you draw a diagonal line from both corners, okay? You see that? All right, now, let me get my machine up and running this morning. Hadn't even started it. Okay, so I've got squares that have a background and a blue. I have squares that have a background and a red. And I have squares that have a background and a red. Okay, let's take this one and I'm going to show you. You're just going to even it up and we're going to trim these down. So if you get a little off, that's okay. You want that room to be able, you want to make it just a smidgen larger so that when you don't have to worry that you get off just a little bit. Okay, that's the beauty of trimming things down. Okay, I'm going to sew 1/4 inch on each side of all of these diagonal lines. Okay, there we go. I didn't need my leader since I'm not using it anywhere else. Those leaders, I think I use them as a safety blanket every once in a while. It's like I don't always have to use them. I think the magic. One second. I think the magic doing this sort of thing, you can see my stitching lines there. I think the magic in this getting 8 at a time out of a 10-inch square comes in the cutting. Let me rearrange the camera and I'll show you how to cut it to get 8. Okay, so here's where the magic happens. What you do is you first put your ruler at the 5-inch mark. So find your 5 inches, put your ruler along there, and you'll see that that's now right down the center of this, okay? So we're gonna make that first cut. Now, without moving your fabric too much, and this is why you do the cuts without the printed line, or without the drawn line first, because you might move your fabric, and it's a lot easier to get the printed line cut without everything being where it's supposed to be. I'll show you that in a second. But now I've rotated the ruler horizontally and I'm making that second cut, okay? Now I want to do my diagonal lines. And so if this one gets out of place, that's fine. I'll just go cut this one first. And then I'll come back and cut this other one, right? So it takes more time because you're making 2 cuts instead of 1, but it's not the end of the world if that moves. Now let's see if we can make this cut all at once. There we go. Oh, almost, there we go. My blade might be getting a little bit dull. There we go. Okay, everything else, yep. So, as you can see, we have 8 half square triangles. Now we're gonna go press them open. And here's the secret to this particular quilt. I am going to press anything that has blue in it, I'm always gonna press towards the blue. If it has red in it, if it's the red with the background, I'm gonna press towards the background, okay? Let me get all that pressing done, and I'm pressing very, very gently. You see how I just was really delicate with that? Okay, I'm gonna go press that. So with the red and the background, we always press towards the background. Anything else gets pressed the other way, okay? And then all of your pieces are going to nest. Okay, here we are to our next step, and we're gonna be squaring up all of our blocks. So here's one that we just pressed, and here's my block lock. Now I've made a video on how to use this block lock, but let's review it. It's got this great channel in it that's gonna hold that seam where you want it to go. You put the logo of the block lock on the side that the fabric is pressed away from, okay? And then you lock that seam in that channel. Now we're gonna bring this down to 4.5 inches. So I'm just barely, and I try and make it so I cut a little bit off of each side, but I'm just barely cutting anything off 2 of those sides. Now, I don't need to move my ruler entirely. I'm just gonna take and spin it. I'm also on a spinning mat, so I could have spun it this way, but that's okay. This shows you that when you're using the block lock, you don't have to have a rotating mat. Okay, I've taken the 2 edges that I cut first, and they are now lined up with the 4.5 inch mark. I'm gonna hold that again. I'm also gonna put a finger out here, by the way. That just helps keep your ruler from rotating if you put a little bit too much pressure against it, okay? And there we go, a perfectly square 4.5 inch half square triangle. And I love this because I love squaring things up, because even when I press things and I press them very carefully, sometimes they just get a little bit canted. So this will straighten all that out. All right, let's get the rest of these done. Okay, we're back over at the design wall where we started. And this is the placement of 1/4 of the whole quilt. So you're gonna make 4 exactly like this. Now, I have a tendency to get things really mixed up. So I've got my label and I've got my clip, and I'm gonna take off this bottom row, starting here, and I'm just gonna move it over here. Okay, like so. Now, I know that this is the top, so I'm going to put label 8 right there. So I know that this is the top and this is the side that I'm going to start sewing. And I'm going to clip all those together, and then I'll take it to the machine. And then I'll put it back on the wall and make sure I did it right. And I'll keep going like that with every one of the rows until I get them all together. I'm going to do that to all 4, and then we'll get it put back up on the wall and show you what it looks like. All right, Before we start sewing that, let me show you where I got the idea for this quilt. This is Barbara Brackman's Encyclopedia of Pieced Quilt Patterns, and you can tell by all the flags. I use this a lot. Here is where I started out, okay? This is pattern number 4007.1, and it's unnamed. It says it's popular with the Pennsylvania Mennonites. So that's where I got the initial idea, and then I turned to my graph paper and my colored pencils. I drew the initial part of the block. I left off some of the corner pieces, how they had it done, because I knew I wanted to do another ring of it and then another ring of it. And so this is where my idea came from, okay? Now, let's get started sewing these together. All right, now I'm at the machine. I'm going to take my clip off. I'm going to take my label off. I know that this is the one that was on the bottom left-hand corner. And I can put it here like this, and I can see that these two go together to make that angle. So now I'm going to put this together like so. All right. And put it under the machine, and here we go. All right. There we go. And I, of course, would chain piece these, but I just want to show you how I do one row. Okay. So I'm going to put this back like this, take him and open him up, and here's the one that goes next. I can see that because we've got that angle going. Okay, move that one out of my way. There we go. Now we go again. That's the one that comes next. Put that up out of the way. And none of these are having to nest just yet, but you'll see in a minute where they do start to nest. Better put that down there before I knock them all down, and then I'm really messed up. Okay. There we go. Now a blue comes up again right here. See how those are all angled, and that's how I know they're in the right spot. Okay. There we go. Next one with blue. There we go. Let's see what comes next. Is this guy right here. And here is the first place that it's going to need to nest. And because I've pressed the blues towards the blues and the red towards the background, these two pieces will now nest. Let me show you that. See how they nest? Okay. And also when I do this, I'm going to get, so now I'm almost off my leader. I'm going to go ahead and pick up my foot and put that little bit of a bumpy part because it's got all those seams right at the beginning. I'm going to go ahead and lift my presser foot and sneak that up underneath there until it touches the needle, and then put my presser foot down, and that's going to help it go through the machine without getting crinkled up, and it's also going to help it's going to help so that you don't what's the word I'm looking for? So that you don't get your seams off and your seams stay nice and nested. So they do that, okay? All right, there we go. And that was the only one really needing to nest on this line. There are others that do need to nest. All right, there is the first row. Now I go put it back with the others and make sure I did it all right. And I'm going to keep continuing. I'm going to continue on sewing all those rows together. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to press every one of these open. And that's because there's a lot of bulky little seams in there. And I know that I'm only going to continue to add to those bulky seams when I sew the rows together. So there's going to be a lot of pressing seams open like that. Okay, let me get to all that and I'll show you how I put them together to make one quarter of the quilt. I got all my rows sewn together. I've neatly pressed open all of the seams. That was a lot of work. Now it's time to sew the rows together. Okay, and because we've pressed all the seams open, and I could go along and put a pin in these, but I found from doing a couple of the quarters yesterday that maybe it's because it's such a short span, I can really keep a hold of this and do just fine without pins. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so pull this first one over here. Get it started. Again, I'm going to lift up that presser foot and stick that lumpy part underneath the presser foot. And I'm just sewing along, making sure I kept my finger on that seam the whole time. Now that seam's done, and I'm going to go to this next seam, and again, hold my finger there, making sure that it stays where it's supposed to. Just like that. And I'm doing a careful 1/4 inch seam allowance. And if I feel that one needs a little bit of moving around a little bit, I just maneuver that a little bit more. Okay. This it goes a lot quicker than you would anticipate. And because I've been really careful with all my seam allowances, I'm not having any puckering or, things like that. Okay. There we go. And my big old fingernails do work as kind of stilettos. Don't get your fingers sewn up in your machine. If you don't have big old long fingernails, get you a stiletto. I have had to take the needle out of the machine whilst it is in my girlfriend's finger and drive her to the ER. So be very careful what you put near that needle, okay? That needle is strong. This happened on an industrial machine. Not that it couldn't happen on one of these machines. But my girlfriend got her finger stuck in my Juki's predecessor. So that was a fun trip to the ER. I don't know that doctor had ever seen a sewing needle stuck in somebody's finger before. But at the same time, I would venture a guess that has happened quite a few times. Just don't let it happen to you, okay? You see how fast this is? I've got nearly 2 of them done. What takes the longest is pressing the seams open. And I will be pressing these seams open as well to get that nice flat look when we go to quilt it. There we go. Almost done. Almost done. Here we are. Yeah, I think the fact that this is such a short run is what makes not using pins make it go a little bit easier. Okay, I'm going to finish those 2, and I'm going to finish that one, and then we'll be able to be ready to put it on the wall and connect everything together. I just love my design wall. Okay, so here are the 4 quarters all put together. I think it looks amazing. It was really easy to do. The most tedious part of this was really the ironing, the pressing of, not ironing, don't iron, pressing of those seams. Now, I think it looks gorgeous, but I have been in just a border kind of mood lately. So I've got some things here that we're gonna try. So I think we stick with the red, white, and blue theme, or red, off white, and blue. So there's a piece that's 2.5 inches. Here's one that's, and you know, you take the seam out, so I'm gonna lay that over about 1/2 inch. That one would be about 1 inch. And then here's your other 2.5 inch. So we would end up with a 2, a 1, and a 2. It looks nice, but I'm kind of thinking I want them all to finish about 1 inch. I don't think we need any more width on the quilt. I think that'll be fine. I think we'll do the smaller one. So my next thing is to get the pieces all put together, get the border around it, and then we'll get it on Eleanor and get her long-armed. Okay, before we start talking about this gorgeous quilt behind me, he's on my microphone, so hopefully you'll be able to still hear. This is Atlas. This is Ranger and Willow's, one of their puppies, and this is the one that we've decided to keep. So he's going to do the video with me today. This quilt turned out so beautiful. I think it's one of my absolute favorite ones that I've ever done. Of course, I'm very patriotic. My family is very patriotic. So the red, white, and blue, even though it's not white, it's kind of an off-white. That just really speaks to me. The colors are almost kind of a Civil War-esque patriotic colors. So I really like that. I think it's beautiful. But, you know, speaking of colors, you could do this in any color combination you wanted to. Think of it as a Christmas quilt with Christmas colors. That would be gorgeous. Also, I think that it would make a fantastic scrappy quilt. So if you've got some 10-inch squares laying around, get to it. This was super easy. All it is a half square triangle. And it was so much fun to make. And I think it turned out so beautiful. Let me see if I can hold on to something else here with him in my hands. This gray, look at that. That's what we quilted it with. So don't be afraid to go outside of the box when you're thinking about what color are you going to quilt it with. We've got a pretty kind of a curlicue design that we quilted it in. It finished 73 inches square. And don't forget that you can find a PDF to this on our website. If you like this video and you like Atlas, please like, share, and subscribe. Do all the things that make that algorithm sing. And until next time, stay quilting. Bye.